Good morning and good afternoon to all of you. For next 1.5 hours or so, we are going to discuss about the use of artificial intelligence for benefiting the smallholder farmers across the globe. We all know that the smallholder farmers contribute to the major chunk of agri-food system across the globe, particularly in India. And of late, we started harnessing the Industry 4.0, if not Industry 5.0 technologies for benefiting the smallholder farmers. And if you see Asia, particularly in Africa, the use of advanced digital tools such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain technologies for bringing the traceability, IoTs and sensor suits, big data analytics, and now we started using the 3D technologies as well, and if not digital twins, for benefiting the smallholder farmers. And during next maybe 1.5 hours or so, we are going to dig deeper into the issues very specifically as how artificial intelligence and machine learning algorithms are going to play an important role for improving the access to the advisories to those smallholder farmers who are working against the climate change and against all odds. And when it comes to AI and ML applications, let us not only focus on getting the access, personalized, time critical, and mission critical access to the advisories, we need also to think about how AI is going to play an important role in accessing the time critical, mission critical services that are required by the smallholder farmers at the pace they want and at the place they want. And a couple of other things which we tend to ignore when it comes to use of artificial intelligence and machine learning applications for the benefit of smallholder farmers is how best we can harness these technologies for improving the access to the markets. And the third point we need to keep in mind is that how well we can actually build AI applications for benefiting the smallholder farmers, especially on financial inclusion and the advisories, market access, and financial inclusion with the gender lens is something which will transform the future of agri-food system. And if you see McKinsey's transformative 12, the 12 technologies which are going to play a transformational role across the globe in terms of productivity, profitability, and at scale, transformational changes in agri-food system. One of the most important technologies which are going to play a transformational role in agri-food system at scale is going to be AI and ML. I am very happy to moderate a discussion on use of artificial intelligence for smallholder farmers for next few minutes. And with me, I'm really happy to moderate a panel of experts who are coming from a diverse backgrounds. And we all believe that the AI use in agri-food systems is no longer a future fantasy. And now we have actionable insights coming from experts like the four experts who are sitting with us today. And I would like to introduce each one of the panelists very briefly. I'm sure that the biodatas will be available with all of you. And if you see, we have with us the Akshay Nambi. There's no need to introduce the Microsoft Research India, which he is representing. And Akshay Nambi comes with outstanding experience, particularly in intersection of systems engineering, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. His work primarily focuses on developing innovative solutions to tackle pressing global challenges, particularly in sectors such as education and agriculture. Very specifically, I'd like him to speak about artificial intelligence systems that are designed for agri-food system with a focus on smallholder farmers during his course of interaction. Welcome, Akshay. It's very wonderful knowing you and the great work that is being carried out, particularly in NLP, natural language processing, and speech technology. And we all know that India is a country with lots of diversity when it comes to the languages and the dialects, which runs into thousand. Secondly, we have with us Shweta Kolluri, who is very dynamic data scientist and a rural development professional with more than 15 years of professional experience in India and United States of America. She is a Fulbright Nehru Scholar and environmental management graduate from Yale University. And she is here sitting with us to speak about her experiences, especially in using artificial intelligence for bringing the climate smart agriculture to the doorsteps of smallholder farmers. And we'd also like to listen from her as how can we build climate resilient agriculture and farming practices using artificial intelligence. If any few case studies are there, we'd like to invite her to interact with us during the panel discussion. Welcome, Shweta. And Cropin is one of the fantastic agri startups, but now it has grown beyond the startup and a big company. And they have become synonymous to use of advanced AI platforms in agriculture. With the presence of more than like 38 countries and millions of granular data digitalized, and I feel that Rajesh Jalan is going to bring on board the wonderful insights as how best we can harness the artificial intelligence and how did they harness the artificial intelligence machine learning algorithms so that time critical, mission critical, and highly personalized farm specific advisories and services are provided to the smallholder farmers. And we are also privileged today to welcome Shweta Singh. Shweta Kalluri, Shweta Singh. Both are Shwetas. She's a dynamic leader with 19 years of experience with diverse sectors, whether it is FMCG or food and beverages, telecom, automobile, leadership she is providing right now with Kateva Agri Sciences. And we all know that Kateva Agri Sciences is also a pioneer in use of digital technologies for benefiting the smallholder farmers. Very specifically, the industry perspective with the gender lens is something which we are looking forward to hear from Shweta Singh. And what kind of practices are in vogue when it comes to application of AI for benefiting the smallholders in general and the women farmers in particular. And I'm sure that you appreciate the diverse expertise which is brought on board by the organizers. And I'd like to welcome all of you. Okay. Can we ask for a big round of applause for the panelists? Okay. Let's not believe in speaking about academic excellences and giving the theoretical discourses when it comes to artificial. Much water has already flown under the bridge. We are interested, and fortunately, we have that kind of expertise on board in getting very pinpointed answers from our panelists so that at the end of this panel discussion, we have something concrete in the form of recommendations which will go to the policymakers, development professionals, industry partners, and various stakeholders who have something to do with advanced digital technologies usage in agri-food system. Now, the question number one. Before that, I'd like to maybe like a quick round of introduction if I have missed out anything. It's okay. My first question to the panelists is artificial intelligence has opened up the new possibilities. There is no doubt about it in various sectors. And we'd like to know from the panelists their opinion about what kind of innovations and capabilities are enhanced in the agri-food system with the use of artificial intelligence. And do you have any case studies from your own organization or the organizations with whom you have been dealing with? And we'd like to know how AI is helping the smallholder farmers, especially in access to the agricultural advisories, markets, financial inclusion. Can we start from there?
Thank you, Dr. Meera. I am Rajesh from Cropin. So, Cropin has always been a data and an AI/ML company. If you see, AI/ML is not new, right? AI/ML has been there for last many, many years, right? But suddenly, last 18 months, I would say 2 years, we have seen an inflection point with introduction of generative AI. And that brings in a huge amount of opportunities to reduce the barrier of adoption of technology, right? I mean, if specifically when you look at smallholder farmers, right, language, gender, the way they deal with technology, the way they want to interact with technology has to be very, very simplified, right? Like if you go back 40 years back, we started with punching code to command line to user interfaces to mobile. And today we are thinking of AI as a companion, as someone who is an expert who should be able to advise us, right? And actually with these technologies, I would say we are almost there, but at the same time, I would say there are infinite number of possibilities that are coming through, right? So in cropping, we took the smallholder farmers problem into two segments. One thing is how do we give the right advisories to these farmers in their own natural language, and how can we do it in a way which is very frugal in nature, right? How do we not develop like huge large language models, right? So we started with the premise that we want to make it open source. We want to have an open architecture, right? So we started with something called Mistral model, right? And we curated a set of packages of practices, right? And what we saw, right, when you ask an open large language model, there is a lot of bias. There is a lot of bias around gender. There is a lot of bias around using use of chemicals. There is a lot of bias around everything that you see, right? So we actually started with making sure that the models that we are developing, right, have actually our curated set of data we went with. So we have a set of agronomists who sat with a lot of experts to first create a set of very, very clean data sets, which we say package of practices. And we were actually with very, very frugal spending, we were able to fine tune a model of Mistral, which we call as micro LLM. It's a large language model, but it's still micro because we were able to train that model with less than, say $1,000, right? And what we have seen with these models, it's actually able to advise people in their own language, right? But at the same time, it's able to advise in the right way, right? For example, we made sure that profanity is taken care of. We made sure that it's very responsible. We made sure that organic practices are equally considered, right? And we also made sure that it doesn't become a branding exercise for any company, right? It is not biased for giving advice for any companies or a specific company, right? So that was one angle with which we feel that now the farmers can actually command the technology rather than trying to figure out how to access the technology, right? And it had everything, right? So we focused on only 5 countries around the Indian subcontinent, like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and India. And we focused on specific crops because we wanted to make sure that what we do is very precise and very, very extremely important and extremely informative for them, right? So this was one angle we took. The other angle we always feel is, this is an agriculture is an ecosystem play. It's a stakeholders play. Everyone needs to play into that system. There is government. There are different, in India we have KVCs, KCCs, which are trying to help the smallholder farmers. So what we did is we divided the whole, like an area like India or say Sri Lanka into a grids of 1 kilometer each, right? And we started giving data about that 1 kilometer each in natural language with all the graphical display. For example, right? It could actually answer saying in which area, in which 1 kilometer grid is the paddy production going to be higher this season, right? How do I visualize that? How do I ask this question in natural language? And how do I get the answer in natural language along with the graphs and the charts which can make sense to me, right? So we felt that this innovation along with the advisory to the farmer is going to make sure that the stakeholders are equally equipped with the AI, right, to be able to reach out to the smallholder farmers, right? So I do believe in the huge capabilities, capacities, opportunities that generative AI is uh, is having, and it is going to have a significant impact on the lives of the smallholder farmer. It could be a breakthrough for the farm for the farming communities, as it is a very very I would say very very complex market with respect to both segmentation and fragmentation, right? There are, we all know here, right, there are like hundreds and thousands of varieties of each crops, and we are talking about hundreds of crops. So the complexity is very high, and we do believe that technologies like generative AI is going to be very very important to solve some of these complexities. Thank you.
Wonderful. When it comes to the advisories, access to the markets, access to the financial services, language as a barrier, that's something which you are nicely addressing. And the complexities require the artificial intelligence usage. And I am sure that, like in coming questions also, you would like to address how well these micro language models have been utilized very effectively. Why? Because we are dealing with 12.8 crores of farmers, 128 millions of farmers, 54% of our population depending upon agriculture, speaking 2000, more than 2000 local language dialects. In rice alone, we have around 1700 varieties which were released by Central Varietal Release Committee. The complexities, and we have a wonderful use case from the cropping. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you. Uh, Thank you everyone for being here. Thanks for the moderator and also the organizers for inviting me here. Yeah, I would like to start by saying that AI ML is not new, right? It's been there for several years now and been applied in many industries, and agriculture also has its fair share, right? Over the past 5 years, if you look at it, there have been significant increase in usage of micro weather prediction, pest and disease forecast, and things like that, right? But what has changed, as Rajesh mentioned, right? In the past 18 years, we have moved away from question and answer kind of a system to a more conversation system, right? AI is your companion, assistant, collaborator, where you're able to get much more personalized answers to it. Right? That's been the big shift which is happening there. And if you think about agriculture, right, the biggest problem today still is providing reliable, localized, accurate advisory. Yes, Professor Mira talks about financial inclusion market services, but those are much more complicated scenarios than advisories. And given there is so much of data availability, advisory is still a challenge, mainly because one, farmers may or may not know how to ask the questions correctly into the system. There is local language, there is challenge in terms of interface problem, and also the data is siloed today. If you look at data available for agriculture, right, it's with different stakeholders from government to individual partners, on ground users, right? So how do you kind of collect all of this data so that you can provide real time accurate advisory? At Microsoft Research, we have been at the forefront of developing Gen AI systems, and we have been very closely collaborating with our partner Digital Green together, where we have developed Farmer.chat, which is a Gen AI chatbot to help address farmer queries. Right. So the key idea is to not directly empower farmers, but to empower extension agents as a first step before going to farmers. I would like to iterate that Gen AI is still a very fragile technology. It's still less than 18 months into the real world, and there's a lot of things to learn. There are a lot of things which is still fragile, and there's a lot of work which has to happen over several years coming down to make it more robust, right? So our thinking and design philosophy is don't go to farmers directly, but empower extension agents so that they can actually give out this feedback and advisories to farmers, right? In India specifically, we see there is a good, healthy relationship between extension agents and farmers compared to other countries like Kenya, but still there's a large gap, right? So with Farmer.chat, our goal is how can we now enable extension agents to provide more granular advisories to the farmers with the help of this chatbot. We have deployed this in several states in India and also in other countries, and we have seen very good usage of the system, right? One key insight to provide is today over 90% of the queries asked by the extension agents or farmers are correctly answered by the chatbot, which is a very good signal, right? Second, I'll talk about one specific use case. When we talk about advisories, right, there is a lot of textual based advisories which has been provided. And one key USP of Digital Green over the past decade, what they have been able to measure, right, is instead of providing textual advisory, showing videos, localized community videos, right, as are the predominant effort in how do you change agricultural practices, right? And when you think of this multimodal data with Gen AI, it's another level of complexity. For example, today most of these farming videos, right, are around 10 to 15 minutes. You can provide this as a feedback to an agriculture farmer who is asking a specific question. With a digital green, what we have been able to do is take these large videos which they have been collecting together with Government of India over the past decade. Now we are able to analyze those videos and provide a small 20-second snippet, right, which shows the agricultural practice for that particular question. And we're able to see that that kind of granular answers where users are able to go into the video specifically, provide the specific information, has been actually been very helpful to the farmers. And since these videos are already in local language and also personalized to their area and farming land, right, this is much more relatable to them, and that is actually making a big difference. I'm going to pause here. Yeah.
Wonderful insights. You have basically pointed out that it is no longer the digital connectivity gap, it is the digital application gap that is existing. If you can address the digital application gap that exists among the intermediary organizations, it would be very easy to provide the access to the AI enabled services. And you have also given an example of farmers.chart of digital green, wherein which even Indian Council of Agriculture Research also was involved. Within a short span of 1 year, around now 9,600 videos, which are very location specific, have been produced. And these kind of videos are going to make a difference when it comes to seeing is believing. So that level of use case also you tried to provide. Thank you very much. And over to you, Shweta.
Thank you, Dr. Meera, and it's a great pleasure to be here at T Hub. I have always enjoyed coming here and speaking to various stakeholders. Very vibrant innovation ecosystem. So thanks for the invite. Coming to your question, of course, and before I go into my response, a small disclaimer. So the views expressed here would be personal and they don't necessarily represent World Bank's views. Um, About AI in agriculture, well, like Mr. Thambi has mentioned, AI has been there for several decades. So is agriculture. In fact, several centuries, right? It's an occupation which is more than 10,000 years old. It's the first ever defined occupation, right? And it's very foundational to life. So a lot of respect to agriculture and to the farmers. It's not that, we give advisories and everything from top down and we know a lot, and you're feeding into someone who don't know. That's not the case. Farmers have a lot of wisdom. They are also innovators. They are innovating very interesting ways and trying to cope up with their microclimate. Let's first address that. And secondly, when we speak about AI, although it has been there for many decades, in the last decade, especially in the global south and in countries like India, we have seen a lot of agri-tech startups coming up with very interesting and innovative solutions. Today, India has more than 2,000 such startups, and a large number of successful ones, or those that are on their path to success, are incubated right here at T Hub. Not that, Telangana is my native state and I keep praising Telangana, but the innovation ecosystem, if you see here, is amazingly good. And thanks to pioneers like Mr. Jayesh Ranjan and Ms. Ramadevi, they have brought in all these people together, the ecosystem together, and trying to solve together while also growing these enterprises. So amazing work happening. But then there is a lot more to happen, because we see that, like my co-panelists have mentioned, agriculture is a very complex topic. It has so many different dimensions, and unlike other problems in AI, it's not a single optimization problem. You have to simultaneously optimize for 4 or 5 different things: not only productivity, not only increase in incomes, not only market prices, but also a very important dimension, which is sustainability, right? Because agriculture globally is producing about 1/3 of global emissions, carbon emissions. But however, if you look at the financing side, it receives less than 5% of carbon financing. So the situation is very skewed. You know, the sources of pollution, air pollution, as well as carbon emissions, also needs a good amount of investment on climate adaptation and climate smart agriculture. So that is where my focus is on at the World Bank. And there are so many beautiful technologies that can be deployed. Today, the world is looking at agriculture from not only the farmers' income and productivity. No, these are challenges that we have been trying to solve for at least 50, 60 years, since the Green Revolution times, right? And even before that. So raising farmers' income is nothing new as an objective. We have been speaking about it for decades together. But what we are now looking at is, how can farmers cope up in the changing environment? How can farmers cope up with the climate and the weather vagaries? How can we incentivize the farmers through financial flows for them to adapt more and more climate smart agriculture practices, while also reducing the emissions from these farms? Because if you look at the super polluters such as methane and nitrous oxide, 40% of the global methane and nitrous oxide comes from agriculture sector, right? And we all know that they have tremendous greenhouse potential, GWP, right? So let's think about these problems as well, in addition to the market access and the financial access. Of course, financing is very important. That is why World Bank is now trying to build a digital platform, like an open digital public good, which will democratize this carbon financing for the farmers, so that the small farmers can have a better access to the carbon markets. So far, the carbon markets have been talking mostly about renewable energy solutions. Now, we all know that we have reached a certain amount of saturation there. And on the other hand, climate, in the case of agriculture, we see amazing possibilities through soil sequestration. And these are low cost solutions developed by small farmers, and through which they can also benefit financially as well as in the long run with respect to their soil health. So this is where we are invested. At the same time, I would like to mention a couple of points on World Bank's role. So World Bank is mostly seen as a convener of the agriculture ecosystem. So we make some foundational investments that are very important for other innovators, private sector research organizations to come in and solve. For instance, we are now investing quite a lot in digital public infrastructure. We are partners to massive projects like AgriStack and Vistar, which are going to unlock the digital applications for farmers and reach all these important services to the farmers directly. At the same time, we are also biggest proponents for open source technologies and open data. Ultimately, AI requires a lot of data. It's sometimes as good as the underlying data, right? So how do we democratize this data and allow for everybody to solve, right? Sometimes a startup can come up with wonderful solutions that can unlock the system. It need not necessarily come from the big tech companies. Sometimes startups have a better advantage in terms of agility to crack some use cases. So how do we empower that sort of an innovation ecosystem to solve for such use cases in agriculture? And most importantly, we have a laser focus on the climate smart agriculture, because all said and done in the agriculture ecosystem, climate agenda is sitting on the fence. Everybody mentions climate, but when it comes to financing, Rokda, there is less than 5% that is going to climate, and it's a very important agenda. It is disrupting the farm sector in so many ways. In some places, it causes up to 20% of crop loss, right? So we have to tackle this with a sense of emergency. I'll just stop here for the interest of time.
Wonderful. So when it comes to AI applications, we need to look beyond productivity, profitability, market access, and financial inclusion. We need to step ahead and also start thinking about how AI could be better harnessed for bringing out the climate resilience. And that is the important message which we have received from Shweta. And over to you, Shweta, about the fundamental question about what is that your organization doing, and do you have any use cases in your mind when it comes to AI's usage for smallholder farmers?
Sure. So I represent Corteva Agri Science, and in fact, I represent the industry per se, right, for inputs. And so there are multiple solution providers, and as Microsoft is there, World Bank supporting that. But when we come to Corteva Agri Science, we are the ones who are in touch with the farmers day in and out, because that's our product. We are the key suppliers to them, right? So these are customers. And when we understand our customer, we also understand those pain points that they face on a day-to-day basis. Just to give you a set of numbers, agriculture, so 60 to 70% of India's population is employed in agriculture, right? This is the basic data that we have all learned and know about it. Okay, and still it is not considered to be a proper business, right? Do farmers call themselves businessmen? No, right? So a digitalization in this industry is way lesser as compared to other industry, though this industry contributes 70%. Right? So here is where we need a lot of focus. This is one business which is unorganized, a completely unorganized business, which needs a lot of digitalization to be involved. The problems, as we all mentioned, there are multiple problems that we are solving as of now. But the solution has to go to that end user, the end person. And it ranges from starting from informating about a particular solution. I just go back to the same data which Mr. Meera mentioned, that we have around 80% of farm hold which is less than 1 hectare. 1 hectare. And you're talking about somebody whose life, their family income is dependent on what is grown there in 1 hectare of land. They don't have a choice to grow or hedge it through multiple cropping. Right? So then we have to be really precise in whatever we are telling them, because the entire family income is dependent on it. So that's where we are working on. We're trying to give them a solution. We won't say we are 100% there. We are not even 10% there in terms of helping them with digitalization. But what we are helping them with mechanization of banks, mechanization bank, as you can understand, these are smallholder farmers, very, very small land. They cannot buy tractors, they cannot buy farm equipments, each one of them, right? So we have farm banks, and digital is helping us connect to it so they can order it, they can request for it, pay for it. They are getting solutions related to soil, where they get information about what is the use of fertilization and what is the optimal use of fertilization, which is the right insecticide to be used, which is the right seed to be used. So these are the basic level AI jobs that we are doing. We have huge level, as Ashweta just mentioned, that even sustainability is something where we have to reach, but then we haven't reached even the basic levels. So we are just starting with the basic levels as of now. So yeah, that's where we are. Thank you.
No, the reality check is very good. Now we have set the tone with the first question. I have a question to the audience. I need an answer in one word or one phrase, quickly. I can give one example of AI application for disease diagnostics, which is GeoPotato. Okay. Do you have any one application which you would like to share quickly? For example, Kenya has used AI for Hello Tractor, which is similar to the Uber model, so that smallholder farmers can make use of the tractor services. Do you have any AI use case which comes to your mind? One example. Anyone? Yeah.
I'm a fan of Perplexity AI, which is basically a search engine, a generative AI application, just like ChatGPT. But it tells you the source of the information along with curating the information in a way ChatGPT does. So yeah, Perplexity AI for me.
Great. Any other use case? Please.
For irrigation, like
Yeah.
to control the amount of water that is supplied to the farms. I'm not sure if that
Excellent.
comes under AI, but yeah.
There are umpteen number of use cases where irrigation automation has been
Yeah.
like using AI application. Excellent. Please.
Help his father to on the motor at the well, which is about 1 or 2 kilometers away from the residence. He can on it, off it from home.
Like Kisan Raja's
And,
auto pump starters.
and this is an intelligence skill without a formal education, which we are undermining. If one studies in school, college, university, that only we consider as the intelligence and research another thing. But many people in this vast country are intelligent enough or more intelligent than the formal educated. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other? Yeah.
Not exactly an example, but I wanted to bring this to this forum, what Sir has just shared. This was probably done as a project in engineering by instrumentation students like 25 years ago. Why don't we have it as the de facto standard in India right now, that all motors can actually be IoT enabled, that they can actually be turned on and off automatically? Where we not getting there yet is something that I wonder.
Excellent point. Excellent. Any other? Yeah. Coming back to the panelists, I'd like to go with Akshay Nambi. Like if you see the Krishi Vignan Kendras, like farm science centers, which are the forerunners in giving the advisories, there is an estimation which says that around 1 million questions asked by Indian farmers are answered every year, and in various languages and various dialects. Based on your rich experience, of natural language processing, how can we build the chatbots, maybe voice bots, so that all these voices, this is only one organization I'm talking about, with more than 2.25 lakhs of private dealers giving over phone the voice based solutions. How do we capture this?
Yeah, thanks for a great question. Yeah, I think when you come to advisories, right, I think the first key challenge is how do you trust the advisory? Right? So we are talking about an AI bot, AI chatbot, which is telling you what you should be doing, which impacts your livelihood today, right? So I think that's biggest one of the biggest challenges which exist today with AI systems, and we have been very actively working, as Ankita mentioned, right? One is can we get the source of information from which this answer is being formed, right? Can we utilize extension agents to verify those answers? Can we bring in the agronomists to verify this, right? In the good old days, agronomists had to curate the answers, right? Now they are just verifying, which is much faster, right? So I think the biggest first thing to solve is trustworthiness of the AI system by having expert verified answers and having experts in the loop, right? So AI is always a companion, right? It's not going to solve your problems, but experts are going to guide you towards that, right? So I think there is a lot of work which needs to be done. How do we do it at scale? Dr. Mira talked about 1 million kind of queries, right? So if so many queries are coming, you want to have a very high level trustworthy systems. So how do we bring in the experts in the loop here so that we can provide these services accurately? One is the advisory. Second is how do we deliver, right? Today in India, we have like in telecom, right? We surpass landlines, jump to mobile directly, right? So in the Western countries, chat is a great interface, but we are now surpassing chat to having voice interactions today, right? And when you go to voice, there are different dialects, there is different cultural nuances and aspects, right? How do you make AI trained on these challenges, right? Is a big problem today. There is several startups, government of India, several MNCs like Microsoft also trying to work on how do we build AI models that represent the Indian local language, culture, dialects, and all these kind of things. And that's a grand challenge, right? Because that is data problem, right? Today, there exists data which is completely siloed. It turns to language, voice data, right? Language is one problem, and then taking it to the next level with respect to voice, right, is another big challenge. And we have been actively working with several companies to collect this data across multiple states, different dialects, different domains, right? Even agriculture. I think it's just when you think about data, right, it's not just language, voice data, but for that domain, right? For example, in agriculture, how do you say what fertilizers, certain fertilizers name, pesticides name, right? All of those also matter. How do you train that? Train the model itself. For example, in education, there's a different domain knowledge, right? There is agriculture, different domain knowledge. How do you bring this domain knowledge in this data when you train the model, right? Is going to be a big challenge. There are a lot of work which is happening, but still a long way to go.
Wonderful, wonderful. My next question to Shweta Koluri is she has brought forth a paradigm shift in use of AI in climate resilience, and which is also linked to adaptation of smallholder farmers, and which is linked to climate finance at macro level, and financial inclusion, especially insurance, credit remittances, and savings and market access. It's very complicated. Do you have any message or innovation which comes to your mind as far as using AI for bringing out the climate resilience at smallholder farmers level?
Sure. Thanks very much. And I would like to obviously bring back the focus to climate action in agriculture, a very, very important topic within the large universe of agriculture. So, some use cases that really come to my mind, and I also had the opportunity to lead one of the innovations called DICRA, Data in Climate Resilient Agriculture, which has been developed during my stint at UNDP. So it's a digital public good which demystifies what climate resilience means in agriculture, because the agriculture sector is vast, and like I said before, the climate agenda is really sitting on the fringes. Not many stakeholders beyond research institutions understand what climate resilience means. right? Where is this adaptation required? How to improve my soil health so that it is still resilient to the extreme climate events, right? To the vagaries of weather. How can the smallholder farmers cope up to the climate? So we have developed a digital platform as an open access. So you don't even have to log in, give your personal information, nothing. It's like a plug and play. Just go inside and try to look at climate resilient agriculture through 2025 measurable parameters, and try to also see how people, certain important actors such as NABARD, which is a very important bank and an investor in agriculture sector, are reacting to it, and how do we take the climate agenda forward, right? So it demystifies at a disaggregated level for some of the parameters, such as land use, land coverage, and all. You can zoom in to almost 20 meters, 30 meters resolution. So some of them are at a bunch of farms level, some of them at the farm level. That sort of information is coming in. There are some other layers like soil moisture, soil organic carbon, which are at a slightly coarser resolution. Some you can see at the village level, some you can see at a farm level, some you can see at a cluster of farms level. So we are democratizing this data because most of the ecosystem actors or the implementers in agriculture do not have the expertise of remote sensing, machine learning, or AI. So we are handling all the complexity in the backend and made a very simple UI UX for people to just look at the map, go to their location of interest, and understand how climate resilience is panning out. And here, when a lot of people ask me, how do farmers benefit out of it, right? Because farmers are not going, looking at the map, looking at the indices, and they are not able to derive insights. So we are flipping the conversation here a little bit. When it comes to climate adaptation, climate resilience, farmers, we are not looking at them as beneficiaries. In fact, we are looking at them as providers of knowledge. They know something very valuable and which they are acting in certain pockets in very interesting ways. Can we go and learn from them, right? And India is such a vast country and such vast geographies. We don't know where those climate champions are. So, with the remote sensing data, we conduct an analysis called positive deviance. I mean, people have been looking at what is going wrong in so many different ways. A lot of things are going wrong. But some pockets, some things are improving. Can we learn something from them, right? Because farmers at their level they are innovators and they are trying to cope up with the climate change in their microclimate in interesting ways. So we wanted to go and understand the secret sauce. Hmm? So one of our partners who are located here at T-Hub, RICH, Research and Innovation Circle of Hyderabad, they took this positive deviance. There are some pockets, some geographies, some villages which are shining as green spots when we do the analysis over long periods of time. In the last 10 years, many extreme weather events have happened, many things have happened, but some geographies are emerging as green spots, right? So those are our bright spots. We have to go there and find out what people are doing, what agencies are doing, what farmers are doing. And they have applied ethnography to document all these practices and feed back into policies. Because as Shweta Singh has mentioned, policymakers and some other ecosystem players are very far from the reality. There are so many chains. By the time you reach the farmer, a lot of things are diluted, and vice versa when things are flowing back. So here we are trying to understand from the farmers directly what they are doing well to become a climate champion. And then we are sharing those best practices emerging from the field, bottom up way, in order to do this. So here AI is helping us to scan these large, vast areas of geographies to understand those green spots for us to dig deeper. So this is one of the examples as to how AI and digital public good. Now, if this is all closed and it comes with a proprietary license and with very high cost, nobody is going to use it. This is India, right? Price point is very important, and this sort of open ecosystem, open digital public goods, they enable the entire ecosystem to act. Sometimes the NGOs are acting, sometimes the farmers are directly acting. Sometimes when we feed these practices to policymakers, they are taking actions. And the research institutions, like let's say from ICAR and the local agriculture universities, they are looking at these data because they do not have the remote sensing AI ML kind of an expertise. So we make it all easy for them and give them in a small capsule. So this is one of the examples I would like to share. Ultimately, democratizing the data, democratizing the intelligence is very important. And whose intelligence and how are we looking it at? So it depends on the kind of design that we are incorporating into the system.
Wonderful insights, out of box, as if there is no box at all. When you democratize the intelligence, you would get to know about one of the case studies of Biodiversity International, which has harnessed the power of data coming from individual farmers. So it has published in Nature what is known as farmers as citizen scientists. If you can just Google it. Democratization will also help working on the algorithms to capture and analyze the alternative data to assess the risk taking ability of a smallholder farmer in climate change context, and the repayment capacities and the credit worthiness of farmers, which are directly linked to climate resilience and adaptation, could be harnessed by the AI tools. And the third point, which Shweta was mentioning, about creating the evidence of AI applications at smallholder farmers level on pilot, so that we can actually go for the policy advocacy so that AI could be mainstreamed for the use among the smallholder farmers. Wonderful insights. Now, can I ask Rajesh? And we know that wonderful work is being carried out to provide the personalized, time critical, mission critical advisories and services to smallholder farmers with micro language models, which are available with Cropin. Can you throw some light so that we can be better prepared with your technologies if some stakeholder organizations wishes to harness AI?
So when we started with agriculture, definitely sustainability, how much of carbon we are generating from agriculture, and one thing that came to us is large language models actually they are generating a lot of carbon, right? So we cannot be a part of some technology or some development where we are spending so much or generating so much of carbon just to solve the carbon problem itself, right? So we wanted to challenge the notion that we would need to really develop any large language model from start, or we would need to be dependent on a large language model that is closed, right? So we started with Mistral, which is a small model, and we saw that very specific problem can be solved more accurately with micro models, right? Very, very small micro models, then going for very, very huge models and trying to fine tune them. So we had a much better control over these micro models with respect to the precision, with respect to how we want to guide these models. For example, regenerative practices, right? Like the literature on regenerative practices will be much lesser on the open network. So if you let loose a large language model, they are not going to give you the practices of regenerative agriculture. So if you want to influence your model to have equal value for climate resistant, for regenerative practices, it's important to also start with a model where you have good control over things, right? So that's how I would think about the looking at various models. Don't think that the size of the model will define the precision, the accuracy, and everything else.
We look forward to actually translate, like when you translate macro models into micro models very effectively. That's something which we always spoke about, being agriculture professionals. Wonderful. AI is only for commercial farmers, large farmers, men farmers.
Okay. Okay. So agriculture. So it was a learning for me as well, right? When we went and met farmers on the ground, we used to introduce them to agronomy practices. And then we used to do a training for them on the agronomy. So whenever you have a training for them, you will find all the male members attending the training. Right? But in India, almost 70 to 90%, depending on which type of agriculture is being done, is being done by the women and not the men. Because our rural population is shifting towards urban to make livelihood, to earn money. So most of the male members migrate towards urban cities, leaving behind all female home, and they are doing most of the work with agriculture. But then we were training only men members. We were not training the people who are really going to do the work there on the ground. And this is where we realize that this is where these are the customer base that really need that training to be given to. These are the ones where the entire knowledge has to be passed on to if we really want to succeed. And that's where we in Cote d'Ivoire decided that we would like to nurture these 2 million women farmer in agriculture, so that we can at least take farming or agriculture to a next level. Now, this is the goal that we thought of, and it will not be, of course, digital is part of it, right? So we cannot go digital without considering that factor of women being there, and considerable portion of women being there. And now the problems that women farmers face are quite different from what the male farmers face. Both right from the beginning of input. They cannot go shop to shop, hopping, finding out which is the right seed, which is the right chemical to use. Somebody has to help them out. So we are supporting around 75 farmer producer organizations, which are all women-led. I mean, the board of directors are women, chairperson is women, the CEO is women. These are, FPOs are just for everybody's benefit. These are like small companies, an organized way of farming, right? So they have been, when we talk to them, the major problem that they face is first input and then connecting to the market, where to sell the produce, right? So this is where I think only those digital solutions would be successful, which keeps the gender portion in mind in agriculture, for say. So.
Wonderful. Not to quote me, but 1 rupee invested in agriculture on men and 1 rupee invested in agriculture on women. Women's return on investment when you invest a rupee is 20% more than the return on investment when you invest a rupee on male members of the society. Yep. That brings us to the rapid fire questions to our panelists. We all know that people, technology, processes are very important in harnessing AI for smallholder farmers. And we know that working with people is the most difficult thing. What is the single most obstacle which you see to institutionalize AI applications in agri-food system? Over to you. Single most.
I think it's data and stakeholders collaborating. I think input companies need to exactly, I think we take agriculture as not very critical. It's not a very defined process. So I would start with the seeds and say seed company need to tell everything in a digital format, in a standardized format, which can be used by any tool. For example, a seed company can say, this seed is resistant to this disease during these conditions, and it has to be digitized, it has to be standardized, and it has to be open. It has to be like the way we take medicines. If we take paracetamol, we know it's a paracetamol, right? We don't need to think about dolo, or we don't need to think about crossin, right? So that's the way I would say all the data needs to come together, which can be understood by any machines, right? And I feel this will really solve the core problem of fragmentation, which is so very much in the agriculture domain.
Wonderful. Non-availability of granular digitalized data, and if available, integrating all the data from various stakeholders. That's something which will bring us to the aggregation. Same question, single
Yeah.
most, but less whatever he suggested.
Yeah, I'm going to say behavioral change, right? So it's technology is there. I think how do you use the technology as a big behavioral change? And as humans, behavioral change is a very hard, complex problem, right? Especially in agriculture, where livelihoods depend, and there is lot of expertise, domain expertise, which farmers have, right? And then we as technologists going them, oh, you should do this instead of that, right? That's not going to work, right? How do you bring AI into the behavioral change, and how do you do that in at scale, is going to be a big challenge. And I think community-led services, personalized, localized approaches, right, are the way to go. And that is the biggest barrier, I would say.
Wonderful point. Behavioral sciences. We do not want faster horses. We want motor cars. That's what Henry Ford said 100 years back. Same question to you.
Yep. I think it's very difficult to say not what they both have said, but I think opening up the data ecosystems is very important for AI to solve things at a scale. Right now, everybody has a small little shop, right? And those actors who should not behave like a shop but behave like a shopping mall are also behaving like shops. That's a problem. So opening up the entire ecosystem, thinking about platforms, not small use cases and applications, thinking about platforms is very important. So open up not only data, but also the code base, open source code, open data, open intelligence, and free access to the farmers is important.
Wonderful. Like open access, open data, global public goods. And we all know that data is new oil, very expensive. And data is also water, reusable. So we need to look at data as water rather than as a new oil. What is that single most barrier?
As I said, right, it's the biggest industry, but still not an industry. It's not organized. And it's not organized because we need to make a lot and lot of policy changes. It has to happen at that level. So I think, yeah, that's the biggest.
Wonderful points. Another rapid fire question to from this way, this side. Shweta, first to you. With in terms of user friendliness, maybe user interfaces, how prepared we are as far as AI is concerned, AI applications are concerned, so that we can actually reach out to those marginalized women or smallholder farmers in a society.
I think we have just scratched the top layer. Just scratched it. So it just languages was one biggest barrier in India. So that's where we are just trying to solve it out. Okay, just to give you a simple example, I mean, I was attending one of the conferences where all the FPO members just came together, and it was in Hyderabad itself. Audience of 100,000 of members sitting there, and coming from all across India, different languages. And these are all farmers, right? So they know their native language. They can understand best in their native language. And all the panels were sitting there, and multiple panelists. It was a 2-day conference. And you want them to understand what they're saying. So now we had that microphones, micro heads, which used to help them translate whatever anybody is saying in the language that they can understand. This is, I think, it was one way of breaking the ice. So yeah, that's where we have just get into. But yes, we have started. This is also taking a step And getting the step in the right direction is also very, very important. So we have just done that.
Wonderful. Question to you.
Yeah, while I'm a big proponent of AI, I'm myself invested into the technology quite a lot. But I would say that for AI to reach the most vulnerable populations like women, disabled, uh, people from, let's say, the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, people who speak beyond the 22 prominent languages in India, um, we are not prepared. AI is not ready to reach those people. One very important problem is the digital divide. If you see in the rural areas, many women farmers, like Shweta has explained, they are the karta, they are the people who are actually doing things, but many of them do not have a feature phone. Forget about smartphone, not even a feature phone. If you have a feature phone, my colleague Mr. Tambi can share an SMS and they can probably read it and try to understand something from it, right? So there was one survey that was done, not recently, but maybe 4 years back, which said that two-thirds of the rural women, and many are working in the farms, have never been on internet or accessed internet even once in their life. So this digital divide is unimaginable. I think the previous session also spoke about digital divide quite a lot, so I would not repeat all of that. But unless we bridge the digital divide, unless the investments are made to have a more inclusive AI ecosystem, we will end up building AI which is going to increase the inequality in the societies. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. I think, like I said, I think India has a great opportunity, right? We in telecom we skipped landlines, jumped into mobile phones. I think for us in terms of AI use case, I think we are going to skip past the chat interface, jump to voice, right? I think that is what I envisage at least. And in India, we have this great opportunity today. People are already thinking about voice, right? There are not many countries who are looking at voice-based interfaces as their input modality to Gen AI. And I think India is leapfrogging in how do we build such technology, right? So I think that would help in democratizing, but I think digital divide is a much bigger challenge which needs to be addressed.
No, I would like to just agree with all the panels and just add that the language, diversity of languages in India, the dialects, the domain, and the data that we need for, if you combine all these things together, is a huge challenge. I would say I'm a huge optimist of technology. I believe technology will can solve all these problems if people come together with different data on the dialect and all the different languages and all the different domains. Right.
Wonderful. My last question to all of you, including the panelists. What is your wishful thinking when it comes to AI applications? You might have come across one AI application in health industry, education, maybe like commerce. What is that you wanted the similar kind of AI application in agriculture as well? You got my point. My wishful thinking is if there is a Uber model in taxi industry, why not we go for AI applications for aggregating the input supplies and output marketing? That is my wishful thinking, taking a cue from the taxi industry. What is your wishful thinking when it comes to AI applications from other sector to agriculture sector?
I would say it's similar to the health industry, right? I mean, you have the practos of the world. You exactly know which doctors. You have the reviews. You can choose the right crop, right sowing, where to sell. I would have something like that for agriculture.
Wonderful.
I would say infrastructure, right? Agriculture lacks infrastructure today. I think, as a gentleman said, even just digitizing motors, automated motors, right, is still a large problem in rural India today. How do we take some of the advances in manufacturing and apply to this, right? Would be a great thing.
Wonderful.
I think I would like to take something from the energy sector, because in climate action, energy has cracked certain pieces of puzzle, and we are trying to bring the climate financing to the smallholder farmers. Of course, agriculture is far more complicated, but definitely there is an inspiration coming from export of services and getting income from other countries, from Europe and USA, through carbon credits to India. That's a possibility, yeah, and we're already pursuing that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I have worked in telecom, right? And telecom is one industry where you see a lot of data flowing in every second. And you can imagine a build a perspective of a person by just looking at the phone number and the data which is coming there. I want a similar thing for agriculture. It's huge, huge, huge. I mean, much before the seed sowing, it starts there, preparing the land, knowing what is right, nutrients inside, and what needs to be added, and what needs to be grown there, what is the best crop to be grown there. So this is how we need to map the entire data and utilize it. It has to look like a telecom sometime.
Amazing. What is your wishful thinking? Quick. Narendra? Yeah. We started 15 minutes late. By 1:30 we are closing.
Thank you. Taking it from what World Bank Sweta said, yeah, we can use artificial intelligence to assess the knowledge of each farmer in farming, and it adds to the knowledge bank of each ruralite across India. Then, to motivate them, reward them, we can also issue at the state government or the central government level a certificate or a diploma based on their level of knowledge in the farming. I think we can utilize that way. So that serves a multi-purpose of motivating the farmer, number one, and also adds it to the data bank, knowledge bank regarding to rural activities, not only farming, farming and non-farming rural activities. Thank you.
Wonderful. Your experience spoke.
Hi. Uh, AI particularly it's more successful in the business, right? When we search Google and all, they are identifying all those things. They are giving pop-up. But unfortunately, this is not happening in the service people sector. Only reason is policies, no data. If you go to the government organizations, especially state government and all, I want to build any whatever you are all discussed. It is all main crux is data. Of course, Rajesh is passionate about this model and the technology, but if you don't have any data set as a structured data set, there is no use.
Wonderful. AgriStack answered that. Next. Thank you. Narendra.
So how I visualize like the AI can help the smallholder farmer. So there are two areas where currently the farmers are struggling. One is with the climate, the another one is with the market. So there are a lot of data is available with us. So if you are not in a position to provide the right suggestion, even if we can also provide the right trends to the farmer in terms of climate and market perspective, that itself is a huge support that we are offering to the farmers, and they can take care of the rest with the suggestions and available technology.
Wonderful. With our Ahmednagar data, we have actually analyzed and found the trends so that for onion disease and pests, on fortnightly basis, we can actually give the prescriptive advisories. Good.
So, my thought might look too ambitious, but then resonating with what the panelists have mentioned, one is the Practo, wherein a scan of the person can give the entire A scan of the farmer, in fact, can give the entire history of himself in terms of what is his geographical location, what are his agricultural needs, and mapping them to the service providers or the market channels which will help him avail those services. That kind of granularity will definitely help.
Yeah.
This might look very ambitious.
Excellent. If you see like national e-governance programs, agriculture 1.0, 2.0, there are umpteen number of case studies. We need to have one AI layer on that. That's all. Anyone from the back benches? Yeah, please go ahead.
I think there's two areas to look at. We've heard quite a lot, actually, where the interesting stuff is happening is on the analytics. So it's not just about pushing information, but looking at what information is there and learning from it and making it useful. And in terms of the current applications, the paper we are presenting tomorrow is reviewing what's being done around the world, and this is clearly the gap. The other side is to not just to think about this in terms of data and information, but that the impact of data information is on relationships. And that if, as we know in agriculture, it's all about relationships, it's about trust, it's about whether farmers speak to each other and to extension officers. And then as soon as we're making apps, we lose all that. And we're thinking just about pushing out data, and we should design apps that are meant to work with people in their relationships, and then I think we can make some progress.
Wonderful. We have been dealing with man-animal conflicts in agriculture. Now the future will be man-technology conflicts. Thank you. Yeah, AI versus HI. Please go ahead.
Just one addition to what Chris said is that as ChatGPT learns from everything we feed into it, I mean, is that possible with your application, for example? I mean, you mentioned that ethnography is used for learning from the farmers, but is it possible in any way to do the machine learning side of that? I would be very happy to hear about that.
Wonderful. Anyone, one from backbenches? Yes, that white T-shirt.
Hi, my father is a retired government employee teacher, and he's enjoying his retirement in farming. But few years back, he sold his 2.5 acres of paddy fields because of the loss that he has to bear. So I always as a child, while I was in my school days, I really want to go with him, enter into the paddy field and all. But late that time, I didn't know how he is having this loss, because all I am seeing is lot of crops and all. But at the end of the day, he's having loss. So he stopped that and he sold the paddy field. Right now, he is looking YouTube and watching videos and cultivating different methods. And I always feel like he wants to do something. My dad wants to do something. But there is a gap between the latest technology and my father. Because father is very old age. Maybe we'll be using ChatGPT for everything, like what we want to know. In the just a glance of Google search, we will get everything. But he is looking YouTube, seeing different channels, YouTube channels and all, and that's how he is cultivating different crops and all right now. So I always wanted him to help in the where we use this font for everything. So he cannot use this for everything. So from the insights I got, I thought like if there is an application or something where he can know that this crop will be can be cultivated here, this is a climate condition, something like that, it will be a very grateful thing for the old age people or father, like those who are above 50, because I feel like they're the one who is cultivating, they're the one who is working more in this field.
Wonderful, dear. Actually, I wish maybe down the line, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, we are going to have a system. If I'm not, because it took very less time for AI to get into the cross-sectoral applications for benefiting the. Yeah, it doesn't take much time, I think. We have amongst us youngest participant. Oh, please go ahead.
Uh, AI is obviously dependent on being able to access data in a very large way. And I just heard one of the ladies who was saying that if we can scan a farmer, can we get all the history of the farmer? But there's also all the questions that we are grappling with. I belong to an organization which works with farmers. How can farmers' data be also protected? Because ultimately, is it about farmer wants some information, like he was talking about his father. Then they're accessing certain, it could be a powered databases or whatever to get information is one thing. It's like a pull thing. But what is more likely, I think, is a lot of companies which want to sell some things to farmers would want to use all this data to then project that this is what will be most useful for you, therefore you should use this, right? So I think that is the direction it is more likely to move. But the questions for somebody who's working with farmers is how is the data that is being collected from the farmers, do the farmers have any say about what data will provide, what data will not provide, and so on. And also, when some products are being sold, that this is the solution for you, and this is coming from some kind of an AI analysis, what is the accountability, what is the way to actually ensure that farmers do not get the wrong advice, or they're not taken for a ride in order to sell some products, but after 5 years you find that that's the wrong direction. So these are all the questions that we would grapple with in terms of data and AI for farmers.
These are all wonderful points. Farmers' data safety, security, and moderating the use of AI solutions, information services. And let's regulate the technology. Let's not regulate people. So down the line, maybe 2-3 years from now, when you democratize, like you say, like as Sam Trudeau says, information is the greatest leveler in the society, next only to death. Maybe like it will also like stabilize and moderate the usage of AI solutions at smallholder farmers. It will evolve as an ecosystem, maybe like because of paucity of time. But that's very wonderful points which you have raised. They are the reality checks we need to keep in mind when you go for the AI applications in smallholder farmers. Last, maybe like at the cost of my time to conclude, I'd like to give chance to the youngest participant in this hall, Miss Pregna. What is your thought about AI application for smallholder or maybe for society at large? She is 12 years old. Citizen scientist.
So, one of my ideas, my opinion about using the AI rightfully is maybe not utilizing it in a bad way, but one way in which data which is offered to the AI can be used like satellite data, which can be used for detecting the places which have less water supply or a drought could be supplied with water with the help of satellite information, or you know they track the water which is flowing, right? So with that idea they can help the farmers by supplying them with the right water supply.
Wonderful. Maybe I'll take only a minute or a couple of minutes to conclude. Thank you very much, Pragna. Big claps.
I
Thank you.
think 1 minute is the thing, not couple of minutes, but 1 minute. So sorry, but because
Yeah. See, we are all working for a agri-food system, which is very very important sector. Like we have listened from all our panelists and also of course a lot of insights coming from our audience. We just noted down the wonderful thoughts and insights and lessons which you have shared. We'll try to come out with the proceedings which are more practically oriented, applicable at the field, and also what could be done and what are those wishful thinkings as well. As we rightly say all the time, as agri food system professionals, the use of AI is much more required in agri-food system and for also for smallholder farmers. And let us all conclude and leave for lunch with a slogan that if not now, when? If not we, who else? Thank you very much. It's been wonderful.